Hey, Damien.
Bernard.
How are you?
Super good. Good to see you. And welcome to Wwise Up On Air. This is a special hands-on edition of Wwise Up On Air. If you've been joining us these past few months as we've rolled out this new live streaming from Audiokinetic today specifically, but if you've joined in the past, we've done a series of interviews that you can check back on Twitch as highlights. But today, it's very exciting. We're here in Montreal with Bernard Rodrigue, lead experience developer here at Audiokinetic. And we're going to be talking about WAAPI.
Yes.
You might be asking, what is WAAPI? That is exactly what we're going to answer.
Yes. And we'll cover also other things, maybe MIDI. So stay tuned. If you're not a WAAPI, if you're not a developer, stay there. We will, I think we'll cover WAAPI. What is WAAPI? For who is it? And why would you use WAAPI? And can you use WAAPI today, even if you don't know what it is?
Yeah, and showing just exactly how straightforward it is to stand up WAAPI as an extension to your workflow, enable some really powerful ways of working with Wwise, with other tools, as a way to extend and augment your workflow.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. WAAPI, break it down for me. WAAPI. What does it even mean?
Well, I think you know.
Busted.
Yeah. So Wwise Authoring API. Wwise Authoring. Why authoring? Because it's not the runtime API. You don't use it in the game during while the game is running. Well, you could do it, but it's not aimed for that. It's mostly used at authoring time. So it is a remote control to Wwise authoring. So the Wwise application that you know that you use to design your project, it gives you full control over that. API because it is a programming interface. So if you want to build new WAAPI programs, well, you need programming skills. But good news, we will talk about existing programs that use WAAPI. We'll also look later at samples and also simple programs that even if you only know a few things about programming, maybe you can tweak some stuff in it and make your own.
And I think in game audio, you have to have some level of comfortability with scripting, whether it's in a visual scripting language like Blueprints and Unreal, one of the languages, Python, Java, C#, otherwise, inside of either a Unity environment or otherwise. Like scripting is a thing that's around, right? Programming as well. This is maybe a step past scripting, but a little bit of familiarity goes a long way. And I really do see the level of programming in WAAPI as accessible for someone who has rubbed up against scripts in their career. So it's not too deep. We're not going to throw you into the deep water, but we'll show you a few ways that you can leverage it today.
Yeah, and we'll be throwing a bunch of example of different applications for WAAPI. And so if you're listening to this and you already use WAAPI, so why not share on the chat for what reason you're using WAAPI? Give your experience with it and share ideas how you're using it.
Yep, ask questions as well as we move through it. This is a dynamic experience that we're happy to kind of bring to you and expose you to exactly how to work with WAAPI in the environment. So grab on.
Yeah.
Let's go. Thanks, Bernard.
Yeah. Okay. So on this slide, it's an overview of different areas where you could use WAAPI as a way to get your hand over the Wwise project or your workflow. So we'll go through these blocks, and we have a few examples of existing software that already is using WAAPI. So audio software. So right now we have SoundMiner and Basshead. They have integration with Wwise. It's using WAAPI.
So these are sound database programs that manage your WAV files and sound libraries, and we have WAAPI scripts that allow you to just pull content from those in different ways directly into Wwise.
Yeah, because WAAPI allows programs to import content in your project. So importing WAV files. You may already know about the tab delimited import in Wwise. So WAAPI extend this feature to programmers.
Right.
So game. I wrote game here because some people they actually author game content in the game. I've seen people doing that.
Sure.
So maybe the game can connect to your project, your Wwise instance running, and tweak volumes or anything.
So almost like building an external volume knob that talks to Wwise in the game.
Yeah, why not?
Okay, great.
Third box is a test. Here at AK, we extensively use the WAAPI the API to test our own software. So we have automated tests that are running on around the clock in our daily test that are actually doing coverage of our testing. So this is for us, but I think if you're pushing audio to a next level, and you want to make sure that your audio system is working at every build, well, maybe automation is a good way for you to verify.
Yeah, in a larger scale production where you have build machines running every night and smoke tests that are verifying whether a build is good or not, the same kind of thing applies for the audio piece of that. And the way that we use it here, again, to validate both the authoring side as well as the game-ready assets or output. I know that behind the scenes we're running thousands of tests on comparing WAV file input and output to make sure that things are coming out the other side of the pipeline appropriately. And that's just one example of tests that you can automate and that WAAPI makes easier.
DAW. So Reaper, there's on GitHub there's the Reaper integration you can find. If you search for Reaper Wwise, you'll find on GitHub this wonderful code. And what's nice with GitHub is it's open to anyone to customize and improve.
Yeah, and I think the Git workflow of being able to just download and use, as well as being able to, is it fork? Is that what they call it?
Contribute, you say.
Contribute to the development of something in a repository. Yeah, it's a powerful collaboration tool for sure.
And then a bunch of other applications, scripting, intranet tools. So WAAPI, as we'll see later, can also be working on a web application. So web page could connect to Wwise and do anything that is available through the API. Game engines. So
wait, back a second.
Yeah.
So you've got a website running.
Yeah.
It's using WAAPI to remote the authoring application. Maybe that's running your game. So let's say I build like a simplified UI interface as a website, and then I connect that to Wwise while the game's running and use it to do some modifications.
Okay, maybe we can try right now. Yeah, let's do it.
Cool.
Take a break of this slide. So here I have. So this project is on GitHub under my my GitHub account. I can post the link
Great.
later. So it's a web application, JavaScript.
And we just downloaded this from Git.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Straight from Git. so there's HTML file and a bunch of JavaScript files. So let's double click this. So this opens a web page. We'll drag to the side, and we'll open Wwise. Let's create a new project. So JSFXR. So no import, and then wait a few seconds.
Now I'm going to take a pause here because this is the easy part, right?
Yeah.
Now we did do a little bit of setup in advance that we haven't talked through with regards to making sure that Python was installed on this computer as an environment.
But for this one specifically, there's no requirement for Python.
Bam.
But
we'll get there then.
Easier.
This is so no requirements. We're just gonna rock and roll it.
So right there, Wwise should be ready to accept WAAPI commands or WAAPI calls. So just to make sure everything is okay, in this area we have the message area, and if we click this, we have a WAAPI tab. So from this tab, we're able to confirm WAMP server started. So WAMP is the protocol used by WAAPI for communication. So it's up and running. So let's minimize this for now. So we started this web page. The JSFXR is a fork of an existing old project. I forgot the original name. Was it FXR?
FSXR, yeah.
Maybe someone can help. So it's a fork of it made in JavaScript in a browser. So what I did is I've again forked the project and added this button here. So what this tool does is it generates sounds, 8-bit sounds. So
yeah.
And each time you click the button, it generates a new variation. It randomizes the values, and so now the workflow is once you're satisfied with a sound, you just press the button, and as you see, there's a new sound created, explosion. So let's another. Oh, that one is good.
That's cool.
So press W. Now we see another explosion.
So you got a hotkey wired up to that one.
Yeah.
Nice.
So now a few jump. Oh, that's good. Okay. W. Now some classics. Oof. And you understand. So now go back to Wwise. All of our sounds we generated in our project. And if we want to dig a bit further and see what happened, we press F4, which is a shortcut to bring the message window, the log. And we see that every time we click the Send to Wwise button, there's a call to WAAPI done. So AKWise core audio import. And the data is actually sent. So what we're sending is the WAV file as base 64. Ready to use in Wwise. Oh, we have live stream message.
Live stream help is coming right through. Thank you, Michelle. So we're gonna turn that down a little bit. Awesome. Well, this is an audio live stream, so it's coming at ya.
Any question, Damien, from this point about this system?
I mean, at face value, without having done any programming at this point, a person can just download this, create a new Wwise project, and just start creating these sounds in JSFXR, pushing them directly into Wwise.
Yeah.
What's to know? I mean, this is pretty straightforward at this point.
Yeah, and we can only imagine what you could do. this is pretty simple. It's simple stuff, but the door is open to anything.
Yeah. So things that I start thinking about it are, how did those, as you pushed these sounds over, how did they get named? How are we incrementing them? The other piece that I think we're going to dig a little more into, some of the subtleties of that. What if I want them to be prefixed when they're imported, so that they're prefixed with JSFXR, so that I can differentiate them within my project? Or what if I want to subfolder them? These are questions that I start to think about. What if I create a virtual folder right now? Will it automatically put them into that folder?
I don't recall. Let's try.
All right, great.
So let's create a virtual folder of my destination.
Great.
And let's generate a simple
little UI.
It does not.
Okay.
So one improvement we could do is retrieve the selection. So from the JSFXR program, retrieve the selection and import the new files at selection.
Gotcha. So this would be in the WAAPI script, when the Send to Wise button is pressed, we would receive the selected object in the Wise authoring, and then as we carry that WAV file to Wise, automatically insert it into that.
So it's a two-step process. So the program retrieves selection. It retrieves the ID of the object selected, which is destination here, and then the import command specifies where to import. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, let's look under the hood.
Okay, why not? So let's use a VS Code for that. Let's zoom a bit. So what we know, it's using the import function of WAAPI. So let's search for import.
And VS Code, if you don't know, is just a straight download and a programming environment that covers multiple languages and allows you to navigate text. A lot of great features, and is really just a perfect environment to get started with looking at and understanding some of the finer points of these coding languages.
Mm-hmm. So this is the implementation of the Send to Wise button. This is mostly for programmer. So there's two protocols that WAAPI allow to use. So there's simple HTTP, and if I recall, this is exactly what it's doing. So it's simple HTTP call, like a web page, like you would do for a web page. And the other protocol is WAMP, which is a more advanced protocol, but here it's only using HTTP. So it creates the HTTP requests and then retrieve the sound name from the type of button that was clicked in the interface. And then to make sure we don't create collision, every time you import, every time you generate a new sound, it has a set of parameters. So that is the URI in the JSFXR program. So we do a hash of this thing to make sure there's no conflict. Every time you import, it's going to be a different file name. And then we encode it base64, and then we do the call to WAAPI.
Perfect.
So the call to WAAPI is actually over here. That's the name of the function to call, import, and that is the data we pass. So we say create a new SFX and put it right there. So this is where we would customize our program to get to insert the destination. So right now it's hard coded to default work unit, and we place the sound name there. And the rest is JavaScript stuff. So register some callback and for logging, and then send the command to WAAPI, and that's it.
And that's it.
Yeah. Let's minimize this, and let's go to the the rest of the presentation.
Okay.
I think it's not there anymore. So let's find this file.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have the path? Won't be long. Sorry. I think I just. Do you know how to retrieve the presentation?
Yes, let's. I mean, we could do it, absolutely. Presentation. I like this. I like this one. Perfect.
There it is. Thank you. So, go back here. We were about to talk about game engines.
Perfect.
Unreal. So our own Unreal integration for Wwise is actually using WAAPI. So you may already use WAAPI and you don't know. So our Unreal integration is using WAAPI to synchronize, for example, the picker, so the object picker. So when you pick an event from Unreal that is from your project, the whole picker is actually connecting to Wwise through WAAPI and retrieving the project, the whole project structure, and is showing it to you. And also WAAPI is being used to keep synchronized data. So as soon as you change your project on the Wwise side, Unreal is synchronized and kept up to date.
Yeah, and again, so as you described it earlier, it is kind of a remote control. And it's being used to keep things in parity between Unreal and Wwise, and to make sure that, which basically gets away from the old problem in Unreal of having to reassociate events.
Yeah.
So, question coming in from the chat: can you use WAAPI to build sound banks?
Yes.
Okay.
But right now it is a bit limited, but in Wwise 2019.2, which is coming out soon, we will have support, enhanced support for sound bank generation, sound bank creation, and so directly from your game engine, whatever it is, you could create your sound banks based from your event, generate them even without writing to disk, and that's coming soon at
with the new version, with the next version of Wwise.
Yeah.
So that's great. That's great. And again, I think what we see with WAAPI is the beginning of a garden that is we're continuing to grow here.
Yes.
Right. Adding additional functionality, building in that extensibility to allow people to automate and kind of expand their workflows. So.
And we're always listening to our customers, and we want to know what you need for WAAPI. What would you do with it? Does WAAPI provide to you everything you need, or there are missing things we want to know about?
Yeah. So I got another one here. Is it possible to read things from something like the profiler? Voiced instances, for instance.
Yeah, we actually started this with the voice inspector in 19.1. So when we did the voice inspector, well, the voice inspector is so deep. There's so many things that can affect the voice inspector. The only way we found, well, to verify that we did not break anything while the implementation and during our life cycle is to add tests for the voice inspector. And by adding tests for the voice inspector, we actually added the proper API in WAAPI to query the profiler. So in 19.1 we added stuff, and we're adding even more in 19.2.
And this is, WAAPI is a tool that we use internally.
Yes.
And so as we're continuing to develop and leverage what WAAPI has, as you say, we're also extending it with things that we need to grow. And I think part of that is, what do you need? What, as wise authors, as people who are evolving your own workflows, how can we help contribute to that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's great. Yeah, and again, I think the best tool that you can hope for is the one that you use, and that as you use it, you continue to grow and evolve it over time.
Yeah.
So it's early days for it. WAAPI, about 2 years?
Even almost 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But in my opinion, in the scope of Wise as a tool overall, still fairly young as a feature. It's already robust platform to build on top of.
Yeah.
And again, we're interested in continuing to grow it.
Yeah, and maybe it's a good time to talk about the different programming language that you can use for WAAPI. So what we saw so far is a JavaScript program, but it's far from limited to JavaScript. So what we did, we provided WAAPI client ready to use in C#, JavaScript, Python, and C++.
Okay.
So these are, we could say, popular languages, and with the client that we propose, you get everything you need to start from scratch, or from a sample. So
what you're saying is that the WAAPI client can accept all of those programming languages. So if you have a familiarity with one or the other.
It's one specific line per language. Great. Because they all have their differences.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And is there one that I don't know, which one do you choose?
Well, it's case by case, I think.
Okay.
So for sure, the C++ one is probably harder to use than the Python one.
Okay.
Because C++ is more difficult. So if you're a beginner, probably the Python one would be a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have experience with Unity and you know C# already, but then use the C# one.
Okay.
And it's good to know also that the C#, our C# client, the new one that we provide since 19.1,
mm-hmm.
is also working inside Unity.
Mm-hmm.
So directly in Unity you could use it. It works.
Bam.
Yeah.
Great.
And on a note also, so what we saw so far is a program running on this computer, connecting to Wise on this computer also, but
okay.
WAAPI being a network-based protocol, also work on remote computers.
Sure. So if you're at a development company and you have multiple computers on your network.
Well, a good example is you have your Mac for recording because you love Macs, but you have your Wise running on a PC, mm-hmm. because PC have good advantage, and you want to connect both. Well, you can.
Great. So the idea that you're running WAAPI scripts that maybe pull content from your Mac,
from the DAW, for example,
from the DAW, and import it over into the PC Wise project running.
Yeah.
This seems like it helps to solve that cross development platform problem of I've got to put it into a temporary network location and then import it manually, mm-hmm. on this other device.
Yeah, for sure you have to tweak security, because by default we only allow local computers to connect to WAAPI.
Let's look at that.
That makes sense, because we don't want other people to mess you with your Wwise. So in the user preference, there's a Wwise Authoring API box here, and you basically specify where, what connection, what IP address you allow to connect.
Got it. Well, that's a nice piece, good piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
Question from the chat: any impact on WAAPI with upcoming Unity.ecs transition?
We are looking at it.
Okay.
So there's nothing decided yet, but yes, WAAPI is part of the plan for Unity. It's just a matter of timeline in our schedule. Yeah.
Great. Expect to hear more from that as we continue to explore the ECS systems and how those. Yeah. What an interesting new paradigm shift for the game industry in general, and we're right in line with taking advantage of it as it evolves and matures.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Let's do another one.
Yeah. Okay. So that is the MIDI one. So let's do some MIDI. We downloaded together the WAAPI Python tool master branch from the same GitHub, and it's already opened on this VS Code here. So that is a suite of only 2 tools right now, and there's one of these tools that helps you on creating MIDI instrument that you can build in Wwise from samples. Do you have any experience building MIDI instruments?
Yes. So it's we put them in a blend container. We put all of our sound SFX into a blend container.
Yeah.
And then we map each one of those based on their note value to their associated note.
Mm-hmm. And
by hand.
And it can be a tedious task.
I mean, if you've got one note in your sound library and you just map it to the entire keyboard, you only have to do it once, right? Easy.
Yeah.
But if you have 88 notes, one for each key, that can be quite a task.
Okay, so let's try to solve this problem. So we have 2 instruments here, the digiflute and the syn trumpet. So let's drag the digiflute. So inside, it's just a bunch of WAV files. They are labeled with the note name, and it's not one note, one file per note. It's a few notes per file.
Yep.
So let's drag this onto our actor mixer. So we get this prompt. So it suggests me to create a virtual folder with SFX, but I say no. And I say, let's create a blend container.
Put them all in a blend, yeah.
Yeah, this is what we need. So let's do this. Okay, so we have now what we wanted. However, it's not exactly doing what we need, because the blend container by default is playing all the sounds together.
We do know that a blend without any blend tracks will just sum everything simultaneously and play them all from the start. It sounds awesome, actually.
Sorry.
What? Don't apologize. That was great.
Yeah, maybe a bit loud. I saw some red on the meter. So, okay. Here, in the property editor, and by default, the MIDI section or tab is not shown. So to get further, we need to activate this MIDI tab.
Great.
So I just did it. And now there's the key map editor button, and I click this and I see this big matrix of numbers, and it's not exactly set up right now. So we see there's a key range min, it's all the same value, and the max also. And what we need is set up all these values.
So for instance, the first one is digiflute A number 1, and you would set that to key range minimum
yeah, something close to a sharp 1.
Right.
And just below and above.
Perfect.
This range.
Yeah.
But I won't do it. It's too painful. So it's because I'm a programmer and I like to automate tasks.
Well, and if you are creating MIDI instruments like this for use in Wwise, chances are pretty good you're going to do it more than once.
Yeah.
So let's build a workflow for that process so that it's not painful. Let's take the pain away from that.
Yeah.
So you're going to use this these Python tools.
Yeah. And there's one called Auto MIDI Map. That sounds right. And what this program does, it reads. Well, first it takes the current selection of in the project. And so right now it's DigiFlute. And then it takes all its children and it parses the names and try to find a key name. And then from the note, it tries to build a mapping of notes. And then it sends it to Wwise. So let's run this program.
So it's really important, though, as you were saying, to name these files appropriately. Because if they're not named according to the expectation of the script, it's not going to succeed.
Yeah, and that's why you may need to customize the program to your own convention.
Right. So let's say you had your own convention, and instead of it saying C, you actually spelled it C-E-E. I don't know, you're crazy. Yeah. You could modify this script, save it, and run it on your group of WAV files with their unique naming, and have it process in the same way.
Yeah. So let's do it. Let's run this program.
Yeah. There we go. Oh, it's like the Matrix when that happens.
Error. What?
This is just like real life.
Yeah.
Usually at this point, I just try to run it again to see if it fixes itself. Not a programmer.
Okay, so we have some hints here.
Awesome.
There's red in the WAAPI log. That's
red danger.
So what's wrong? Property doesn't exist. Okay, let's try again.
See?
And now
see, this is what I said. Yeah. Okay, great.
I think it was a selection issue because what the program tries to do is retrieve selection from the program that retrieves children.
So maybe you had something selected in the key map editor.
Yeah, that's my what I suspect.
Perfect.
Because after it builds this MIDI key map, it actually sends property values. So all of these columns here are properties in Wwise. And from the WAAPI point of view, they're all the same. Just property, and a property is just a name and a value on a specific object.
Gotcha.
So
it worked, and it worked, right?
But I think we still have an issue. Oh, yes, we have a keyboard. So we could try to test this.
I think we should.
Yeah.
But yeah. At this point, you can play any individual note. Doesn't really change the way that it plays in Wwise because it is still just a sample that you would play back with the transport. But it's specifically that MIDI mapping and how you then will take a MIDI file in the music system, point it to this instrument, and then those MIDI notes now that you've authored will correspond directly to each of these samples based on their note value.
Yes, because every node in Wwise is aware of MIDI context.
Perfect. So yeah, I want to play with it on a keyboard.
So let's do it. So to do that, the first thing to do is to register this device as a control surface device. So right now we have no control surface registered, so we create a new one. It's the API, and we say receive from this device.
That's it. It already knew it was there,
and it's connected and it's working. Okay, but
There's like 10 more steps, right?
what?
No, there's not. It's just that easy. It's
No, there's
connected.
one more step.
Give it to me.
Next step, control surface bindings.
Yeah, okay.
Because by default, Wwise does not know what to do with these nodes. But luckily, we have this default control surface session
Perfect.
that does the work for us. It actually redirect
Binding.
any key information to the current selection.
Yep.
It does it for us. So let's pick this node and let's try to press a key. No sound? Okay. Try again. Okay. What? See? Did the node hold after you release?
Yeah.
That's not good.
That's not what I wanted. That's not what I expected.
No, so let's fix this. Okay.
Yeah, it's broken.
Yeah, it's broken.
Let's fix it.
Is it under guarantee? Yeah. But the solution is easy, hopefully. So Wwise is aware of MIDI, and also the RTPC system is aware of MIDI. And the only thing we need is the envelope. And the good thing about the envelope is it's also MIDI aware, and it's able to trigger the release stage of the envelope on key off, on note off.
Let's see the properties for that modulator. Can you pop those open?
Yeah.
Yep, great.
So we have attack. Let's put 0.1 and short release 0.2. And we see it's already set to stop playback after release. And it's note aware on the scope here. So let's try it.
I think it's your turn, please.
Well, I'm not a good keyboard player, but
Ta-da!
Okay. So we just saved time.
A ton of time.
And maybe we can save even more time
Okay.
for our next instrument.
Okay, but let's look at our MIDI map again really quick because we got something coming in from the let's see. So the question is they're all off by 1. The script gives a +1 on the note, octave-wise. Key range is okay. It's -half note up to +1 half note. Aha, aha, aha. Okay, they've worked out the math. Great. Thank you, community, team. Nice work.
Yeah, and even C3, for example, there's no... It's in Wwise, there's a setup for this because it's not the same key across software, so you can actually customize. So there's the display middle C as C4. You can actually customize depending on different software. You have different values.
Awesome.
So that might help. Okay.
Great. Thanks for working that out for us, community.
So do we look at the program or we try? Okay, we look at the program a little bit.
Great.
Not too long because for non-programmers it's okay.
But get used to it. There's some simple tricks in here that anyone can do.
Yeah. That is a regular expression.
Okay.
That's fun stuff for me.
I've heard of regular expressions.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, it's a language all its own.
Yeah.
Wwise uses regular expressions, or you have the option to use that in batch renaming.
Yeah.
Let's look at that real quick in Wwise and take a segue to it.
Yeah.
So if we select multiple objects,
Like this.
we can batch rename, and inside of this we can check the use regular expressions button, and now we can do like find and replace stuff using this language.
Yeah, you get more control.
Yeah, and I don't speak this language. However, if you hit that question mark button, it takes you to the help where we can see the regular expressions help for it.
Here.
And there's a reference guide that will start to go over the different syntaxed uses.
Yeah, and you can find a bunch of other websites that will help you on the internet for testing your regex, like regex 101, and there's other ones which are very good.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So we're looking at the regular expression being used in this script.
Because it's trying to find the note in the name. So this is what it does. It searches for a note name, and then search for the octave number.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where you can expand this program. Like, for example, right now it does not support velocities.
Okay.
So, but you might have velocities in your file names but you want to modify this regex to parse the velocities.
Yep. Read the velocity information in from the file name and then apply it to that key map.
Then it's a very similar process that we do with notes, but you're gonna map velocities in a different dimension. And so what this program does, it gets selected objects, get the children of the objects, and from the selection we get ID, name, type, blah blah blah. Then again we parse, and then at the end we actually set a bunch of properties one after the other, because we set the min and max for the keynote, but for as many sound that you have in your selection. So it could be 50 properties that we set.
Of course.
But we don't want to create 50 undo. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so what we do is we say, okay, undo, begin, group. So we start a batch operation.
Got it.
And then we do the object creation, or all those properties, filter, min, max, MIDI note tracking, on, off.
Great.
This is all taken care of by the program, and it's set property at the end, and terminate the group.
So it's a batch of that process that can be undone as a batch.
Yeah, because you might mess up.
Yeah, sure. And better than having to undo 50 times.
Yeah.
That's no fun. So that's just good programming syntax, right? In order to know that you need to batch something like that.
Yeah, and it's not only for undo, because it's also for performance. Because Wwise updates its sliders every time you change a value, but by grouping operations like this, you're able to have also better performance on the authoring side.
Gotcha.
Because we do less refresh.
Sure.
So maybe you can try to create a new sound.
Great.
But even faster than the first time.
Okay.
Okay. So let's drag this synth trumpet.
Great. Let's blend container it.
No.
Oh, what?
No. Because we already did it for the digiflute. Why would we do it again? So
okay.
So let's browse for our digiflute. And
so what you're doing is you're setting a template.
Yeah. So I'm saying, okay, create these new objects, but instead of creating them from scratch, take these objects as a template. So it's going to take property value, RTPCs, our envelopes, everything, and import. And now we have our synth trumpet. And if we look at the key map editor in the MIDI tab.
Oh, and so just first off, what we were looking at was the modulator. So
yeah, all right,
that has been copied.
Yeah, and everything is set correctly. So we did it again, but even faster.
Okay, and if we had missing notes in there, let's say this C section was gone, it still would have mapped based on name.
Yeah, the template system tries to find best match between the source template object and the new, and it tries to find the best.
Great, and when it does find the best, it applies, in this case, the key mappings that have been set for it.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that was easier.
Yeah.
Even still. Hold on.
It works. That was a good test. It's not just smoke and mirrors.
That's right. It worked. So that's great. I saw a lot of code. We talked about it.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything to it. This was just something we downloaded.
Yeah.
We pressed play. It executed and quickly optimized a workflow for generating instruments and mapping them to MIDI in Wwise that feels very powerful.
Yeah.
So that's fantastic. And so we've looked at a couple different workflow enhancements. One was, working with an external tool, importing variations from that tool directly, and whether we're talking about something like JSFXR, which is a web-based tool for turning synthesis into WAV files, or whether we're talking about a sample database like SoundMiner or Basshead and grabbing things from that, tossing things between a DAW on another computer, even on the same network.
Yeah.
Just a lot of ways to work with WAV files there that we've talked about and shown. And then in this example, taking a set of files and then putting it into some kind of order within the system. So whether that's, in this case, we were talking about MIDI, but similarly, if you had, I don't know, if you had a way that you liked to do vehicle systems in Wwise, you could build a script that automatically pulled in WAV files from a folder and put them into a system that you'd created.
It's all about naming convention and structure.
Yeah.
These are things you need to put in place.
Yeah.
And then you can build a tool set that will help you on your workflow.
Right. And, the first rule of a naming convention is have one, right? So as long as you start with that, you're going to be fine. And you can evolve your naming convention over time as you find different ways to use or different ways that it is used in practice. But think long and hard about that, because the evolution of a naming standard over time is something that will span your entire career. Like, still thinking about that first naming standard that coming into the industry I worked with, and 15 years later, and continuing to evolve the best practice for how to name a WAV file, source WAV, at its beginning, so that as it finds its way through the pipeline into Wwise and then finding its way into the game as well, you live and die by that naming standard.
Do we have time for questions?
I think we do.
Yeah.
Bernard will answer any math questions. I'm happy to talk about food. And otherwise, WAAPI, Wwise, bring it. We're here for you. Thanks for joining us today for this Wwise Up Hands On.
Maybe there's a pending question we did not.
We did okay. We have some folks helping us out here at Audiokinetic. Thanks to y'all for joining in. A group of people here on the Twitch live stream. Thank you for that.
Oh, it's coming.
There's a question coming in talking about WAAPI and Reaper.
Yeah. We can talk. So maybe we can look at the thing. Can't touch.
It was great to watch you try though. It's a different keyboard, Bernard.
Okay. So that is it's on Git.
Well, let's go through the Audiokinetic blog. So again, this is the part one that Nicola has wrote for us.
It's called WAAPI transfer on GitHub. So what it does, it's leveraging the render queue in Reaper, the render system to automate creation of objects and also importing audio files. So it's aware of the different types of object in Wwise, and you can batch create bunch of operation or objects using the render system of Reaper. That's an overview of it.
And that will push them into the locations that you specify.
Yeah.
And over in Wwise, you can set the default editor. Can you navigate back to those in the Reaper project from Wwise?
I don't recall this.
Okay, great. But this is, as we move forward trying to enable the bi-directionality between Wwise and other applications, pushing one way is great. It gives you that fast path to integrating content that you've created. And the other aspect of that is from Wwise being able to go back to that DAW project and author in place.
And thanks to Carl Davis, which is the author of this
great
super program.
Awesome. Great, we've got a comment on key mapping actually from PDX. One comment, I prefer key ranges to be sequential by pitch rather than alphabetical. Makes maintenance easier.
Yeah, it's true. So that's for someone that knows Python programming a bit, that's an easy change to do in the program. Yeah.
Excellent. Good insight, PDX. Thanks for bringing that. So, Bernard, fantastic overview of WAAPI today. I think that whether you're a programmer and ready to dig in and unlock the API and what it provides, or whether you're part of the community and contributing these scripts via Git,
for screen.
Regardless, there's a pathway to leveraging this extensibility. Even for someone like myself who I don't really have the skills to get dirty right away with programming, but something like sample library integration for importing, something like that SFXR importing tool. Like if I was building an 8-bit game or cranking out some chip tunes and using Wwise as my MIDI playback, this would be a direct path for me to iterate very quickly and generate content without even programming. So it's a great extension. Another question coming in. When using WAAPI, are there things you need to do in order to issue the commands?
First thing is to connect to Wwise, and then you just issue commands. So it's 2 steps. And maybe I can show the C# example. If I type Wwise, I can show the screen one second. Oops. C# sample. Can you switch to this? So make sure you're on the latest version of the documentation, because every time we release, we have a different version. So once you're on the latest version, well, it's not. Yeah. So let's look at the Wwise Authoring API reference. Actually, using. So there's a page where it shows you all the different languages options that you have.
Great.
And for each of these languages, there's an example instruction. So we'll take a look at the C#, for example. So in C#, what you need to do is create the WAAPI client, then you connect, and then you invoke a function we call. So we could say it's 3 steps. I'm not sure if it's what was the question about, but
yeah, again, I think it's issuing a command, and from there, so once you've created those 3 steps within your script, you then execute that script through your programming environment.
Yeah.
Is that how that works, or yeah? Okay. Did that answer your question? We're good. Is it just that easy? Trademark.
I would say that be careful if you have multiple instances of Wwise running at the same time.
Ooh.
Because only one instance of Wwise, you can only talk to one instance. Actually, it's not entirely true. Because when Wwise starts, it starts the WAAPI server ready to be used, and it uses a port. But you can actually start multiple instances of Wwise on different ports, but by default they're all on the same ports. So only the first one will be working. So be careful with that, but you can debug this thing using the log and make sure your server is started. So
excellent.
That will help.
Excellent. Again, what's nice is you have this this 360 environment for debugging what's happening with your WAAPI scripts through the logs, as well as the scripting side environment that gives you feedback about execution as well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we'd love to hear more about what you want to do with WAAPI, if there are limitations that you reach, or if there are dreams that you have for remote controlling Wwise and using it across other applications. You can drop a line anytime at openears@audiokinetic.com. The Wwise Q&A is there for you as well. And Bernard, pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for walking us through WAAPI. It's been an educational time.
It was fun.
It's not bad, and snow outside.
Yeah.
I see you got your toque.
Yeah, it's Montreal.
Yeah, it is winter after all. So thanks for joining me today. It's great to be here at Audiokinetic.
Yeah.
And to all the Wwise authors out there, keep making noise. We'll talk again soon. Thanks.
Bye.
Oh.